Okay, so what we got here is a mid to late 80s uh, Yamaha Moto-4. It is a yfm200 engine on it, and one of the main problems we had was that it wouldn't rev up. It had no power to it. So I initially was leaning towards a CDI box because I heard that they could lose the ignition advance side, yet they could still spark. So I kind of devised a way of checking the timing, but I hadn't actually had to get to that point yet because I wanted to do a compression test to see if it had compression first before I started doing a different method for checking the ignition advance. Anyway, so I did a compression test on it, and I only, I think I pulled it once and it only went up like 30 pounds, and I pulled it as hard and as fast as I could over repeatedly, and I think the most I got out of it was 90 pounds. And the minimum spec on this engine is 112 or 115, and standard is I think 125. It's in there somewhere, and I think high was like 145 or something like that. So I wasn't even, I think at 90 was the max I could get out of it. So I was leaning towards maybe it was a piston ring issue or something like that, because it was kind of burning oil too. So I thought, well, maybe the rings are bad and it's just not getting any compression to it. So I didn't want to just start ordering parts, because I mean it's not easy to get this engine out because of the shaft drive and stuff. And I taking it all apart to change like the piston to rebuild it, because I mean it's not in the greatest shape. I mean it's doable, but you're looking at a considerable investment to replace all that stuff. So I put a cylinder leak down tester on it, and I was getting quite a bit of leakage. I think it was getting it was like 80% leakage, and it was pretty much mostly coming out of the intake. I wasn't really getting anything out of the crankcase. So I was pulling on the starter cord, and I could get it to, I mean, basically I could have just pulled it over and over and over and over and over, and it was just rotating and rotating. I wasn't really hitting a lot of compression, and so it would leak out of the intake, and then leak out of exhaust, and the intake, the exhaust, and it was almost like it was every single stroke it was coming out of the intake. It was like it wasn't it was pretty much leaking out of the intake almost the entire time. So it would leak out of the exhaust for a second, it would get on the compression stroke, and I could there was like a very small window where it would actually build up pressure, and when it would get the pressure, it would hold like 90%. I think I was only getting maybe like 10 to 15% leakage, but it was like a very small window, and you had to hold it just right. And then if you pulled a little bit more, it just cranked right over, and it went back down to the exhaust stroke, and then it would leak out of the exhaust and then back and forth. So I decided to check the valve lash, and the intake valve lash was tight the whole time. So I reset the valve lash on the rear, and then I got way more compression. I think I pulled it, and we were getting like pretty much 120 pounds. So it definitely went up a lot. I think it got like 90 pounds just with the first pull, which was not what it was doing before. So it's still kind of running a little funky. I didn't do the exhaust valve, so I'm going to do that now. And I have to take the intake valve cover back off because I put it on upside down. There's like this little V casting on the inside that's supposed to be on the top, and I believe I put it on the bottom. So I got to take that back off so I can orient that correctly. And I'm going to, while I'm at it, do the front valve lash, just so I can know that I did it. And because I mean it was a little tight, but I don't know if it was tight enough to cause an issue, but I do know the intake side was. So that's what we're gonna do now. So it comes apart pretty easy. Just got a strap here, a hook, and then you got a bolt on both sides to hold the tank on. You might be able to get at it without taking the tank off, but I figured it was way easier just to do it than not do it. I was going to record this yesterday, but it's one of those things. I didn't want to just record a bunch of video not knowing what the problem was. And then by the time I kind of figured it out as I was plugging along, it was too late. So I figured I would do this for you. See, some of these you can't get a like socket style in, and they're 5mm. I don't have the 5mm, or I don't have the metric in the regular Allen keys. I just have the standard ones. So I got one that fits in there, but it's not really that tight. Yeah, everything hits the frame here and then down here. So there's two of them you can't get out with one of those. You got to use like a small Allen key. Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe it's for an oiling thing, but you see that little notch right there? That's got to be up, is what the book says. For the download, I got a download for $5. So you need a 6mm socket or Allen head, and there's a plug right here. There's a plug there. You pull that out, and there'll be a timing mark on the flywheel. You kind of sight it up through the little hole. And you want to have it at top dead center. I think there's supposed to be a little T on there. There should be a notch for a T and a notch for with an F in front of it. I didn't see that, but that's what the book says is supposed to be there. I just saw one mark, but usually they're right next to each other, so it's not like a giant deal, I don't think. Let's see, there's one mark there. I know what that's probably it. I mean, you're only talking like a couple of degrees above and below. The valve shouldn't be any more open at the firing stroke as opposed to the top dead center, because you're on the compression stroke regardless. I mean, if you look in there, I don't see a T at all. I just see a line. See, this has got the compression release in the side. So, yeah, they lose. So we're both loose. I think we're close enough. So the intake is 2 to 4 thousandths gap, and the exhaust is 4 to 6 thousandths. I got too many there. So I just went right in the middle with each one of them. It's actually still a little tight now. I mean, it's good enough to run, but it's still pretty tight. But the problem I have is I don't. Well, what was it? It was 2 to 4, right? So we'll try 2. Alright, 2's plenty. Plenty for 2. So we look at 25 thousandths or 2.5 thousandths. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with that because, like I said, I can't get it exact really because I don't have anything to hold that top. It's like a little square head on there. So it's right there. So to adjust this, you would obviously loosen up your set screw and then turn you loosen up the jam nut and then turn the screw here for the valve lash. So down is tighter, up is looser, and then tighten up the set screw again. And you just go in between there and check your valve lash. So you want a light drag as you do it. So like I said, it was 2 to 4 thousandths in the rear, and it was 4 to 6 thousandths, or 2 to 4 thousandths on the intake, and 4 to 6 thousandths on the exhaust. So I got 5's in there pretty good. So yeah, we're good, I think. So the exhaust obviously wasn't my problem to begin with. It was the intake side was tight, and that's where I was losing all my compression. So I'm glad that I had the leak down tester, because I mean it led me to the leak, obviously. When it didn't show up for the leaking air out of the oil fill hole. So that's another way that I checked it, is I took the oil fill cap off while it was leaking, and I wasn't getting any air here. I was getting basically everything out of the exhaust, which it's hard to tell because the intake goes to the box back here, and it also comes back up the box and up the tube up here. So basically you hear leaking from both ends, and it took a little pinpointing where it was actually coming from, because it just sounded like air was going everywhere. So there's that. Yeah, and I guess I could try to get a little bit more clearance out of the intake valve. It's just difficult to get it right because, like I say, I can't hold that because I don't have that little square tool. So I'll kind of loosen this up a little bit, and we'll try to turn just this top a smidge. it back up, it'll be that much farther away. So yeah, this is going to be a pain now. Should have just left it where I had it. Alright, let me go get a pair of pliers. Alright, so got a pair of needle nose. I was kind of getting them. That's how I kind of did it yesterday with these. Alright. I think we're there, sort of. So now I got it close, and this jamming screw is a little bit snug, so I'm just going to kind of leave it there, and it is going to rotate the whole thing. No, it's still too loose. So basically, I'm just kind of timing how far it turns. Yeah, about where we were before. Yeah, it's a little bit better that time though. So it's like I kind of keep squeezing it forward a little bit more, and you got to kind of tighten it, loosen it, and then eventually it's where you need to be. So you got to make sure your cap is on with that V notch up, is what the book was saying. It was a pretty crappy picture. It was like a photocopy, but it was all faded. It was a downloaded PDF is what it was, but it wasn't very good. I think that's the way it goes. I don't know, to be perfectly honest, I don't think that's the way it goes. Or I don't think it's the way it came off anyway. It might be the way it goes. I guess. Because it's darker up here. I think it was down. I'm pretty sure it was on upside down then, if that's the way it's supposed to be. But that doesn't mean that's not the way it's supposed to be. That, because if you look at that one, that's got the notch at the top, so I guess they're both supposed to be like that. Yeah, I gotta hurry, it's gonna start raining in a second. Gotta at least get the holes all plugged up. Where's the other one? plug. I mean, we might not even have the right carburetor. I don't. The owner of this got this from a guy who changed the carburetor off of one that was on eBay. And obviously doesn't guarantee it's the correct carburetor. It doesn't have any adjustment for the jets or anything, or air-fuel ratio of the jets. So, I know they're trying to do all that EPA certified stuff where nothing has any adjustment anymore because you might burn an extra ounce of fuel. Whatever the reasoning is. I mean, you can't even tune chainsaws or anything. It's all set from the factory now. That's the problem you get, is if you got something that isn't really set right, at least for your area, you got to take it to a dealership who's authorized to own the tool to adjust your carburetor for you. I'm sure you got to pay them to do it. Well, I mean, it's kind of just that easy. It'd be a little easier if I had a little square head tool to adjust the valve, but you know, you make do with what you got. So, I hope this helps somebody, and thanks for watching.